So for the next hour, we're gonna process a bunch of stuff about what it means to be Asian American. So we can start with like how it's been for both of us lately to go through what we're each going through and what that is making us think about. Do you want to start first?
Sure, Atlas. Thank you. I, I, I have an incredible flux of emotions. So it's both like up and down, and it feels extreme, but I don't think it's necessarily extreme. So there is like an immediate, immense sort of sadness because of the death toll is huge. People are dying, and it sucks. One of our students expressed like a death due to COVID, and it's extremely sad. And I know people are really hurting because like even if and under normal circumstances it would suck, but right now it's like you can't even have a funeral really. Um,
Mm.
you can't do things that we've traditionally thought of as honoring the dead, and that's just incredibly depressing and sad. At the same time, I'm also like extremely excited for the possibilities of elevating our voices. I felt really energized to work because suddenly, like there was a purpose and a meaning for me before, but the vision is much clearer now because we are now in this incredibly infinite virtual landscape to do some really cool things, and a lot of people have already done like just a truckload of awesome things and said things, and I'm just really excited to be part of that. Man, I'm not breaking up as in tearing up, but goddamn. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
for
just kind
sure.
of an exciting time. So I'm like up and down, and for me, like I've learned a lot about Asian American history, and so when I think about our statement as APACC trying to connect our personal heritage to what's happening now, I'm thinking one, the resilience of my family's, the privileges of my family's as it helps me today. The idea that like both my families just kept really great track of who my ancestors were, and that's a privilege in itself. Um, so I know very well where I come from and what I inherited, and
Mhm.
the way it relates today means that I have elevated capacity to talk about where I come from, to connect what the work is, and try to elevate voices that don't traditionally get elevated. And we'll
Mhm.
probably dig into it a little bit more, but um, I do feel a sense of guilt and shame around that to elevate Asian American issues in this particular time, even though it deserves to be, but
Mhm.
also being able to complicate it with some of the stuff that our Black and Brown folks go through every day, all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's just a very brief surface level. I don't know if it felt surface level, but to me, that's a very brief surface level engagement that I have right now. So it's been um, a polarized, internally polarizing time.
Yeah, it sounds like
How about you, Atlas?
intense on it sounds like it's intense on all directions. And yeah, we're starting to see people we know directly who are experiencing either being affected by the virus on their own or like knowing someone who have and then knowing someone who passed away from it. And it's becoming more real and less of a thing that we see at news. And I think it's interesting that you're coming from a place where you know more about your history, your family did really good track. And for me, like I'm relating to it from like what it means to grow up in Asia. And we did have history. Like my family kept the lineage and everything. But the problem I saw at the time is it's all Chinese. Like they only kept the Chinese side and they only
Juicy,
kept the paternal side, of course. So I'm
of
like, who
course.
else is in my bloodline that has been erased because they don't fit in this like pure blood idea that we try to carry? And I come to the US, I had to erase a lot of my identity to fit in, just trying to be in the queer and trans community where it's mostly white discourse. I had to give up a lot of that. So this this virus is actually giving me a lot of space to think about, well, who am I? What is my ethnic identity? How do I relate to this? How do I actually relate to it, instead of just like seeing it as a thing on the internet? Because it does affect me. I do get nervous when I go to the store. I'm on alert all the time. I think a lot with my martial arts community. We talk about, well, how do we protect ourselves without actually bringing weapons? And we talked about de-escalation. Like, how do we, as a community, know how to de-escalate and know our roles in those situations? Yeah, so a lot of things we can talk about.